Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to ed up on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode, and I'm just going to up front that I am a little under the weather. I'm not sure if that was me coughing. It could have been. But that's going to happen continuously. I'm going to try to hit the mute button when it does happen. But you know what? As they say, the show must go on. I have an able, willing, and excited guest that needs this microphone because he's got amazing things to say about his university. But before we get to that, I do want to remind the audience of two things. One, Higher Ed PodCon is coming up in July. So when you listen to this episode, the EdUp Experience, Elvin and myself, along with our partner Dean, who we brought on for the podcast conference, we're going to hold the first ever inaugural Higher Education Podcasting Conference. It's never been done before. It's in July in Chicago, Illinois, July 12th. I know I'm not supposed to date these episodes as co-founder of the EdUp Experience, Elvin always says, but this conference is important to us. So if you listen to this episode, consider joining us in Chicago on July 12th. It's a Saturday. We're doing a one-day agenda-packed podcasting conference for higher education, podcasting for enrollment, for alumni engagement, for teaching and learning. We've got tracks for everyone, because podcasting is one way, and it's a great way to get your message out. And we have a lot of podcasters across higher education or people interested in and around podcasting where we think this conference will resonate. That's one. Number two, and quickly, we have a part of our website, if you've been listening to me, called EdUp Editorials, where we take submissions, writing submissions from our colleagues across higher education, and we publish those articles and send them out to our worldwide audience. It could be something going on that's great at your university that maybe a trade publication isn't going to pick up because there's no angle, but it's something that you want to talk about and write about and tell the world about. EdUp Editorials is the place for you. You write what you want. We publish it. We send it out to our audiences. Keep that in mind. You can submit those articles to me or Alvin or through the website. Okay. That was a lot of talking for my throat that is already killing me. So I'm going to give my guest all the light he deserves. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring him in right now. Here we go. He is the president of Westmont College. He's Gayle, Beebe. Gayle, what's going on? How are you?
Well, doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And sorry you had to listen to all that bloviating, but I do got to get it all. You got to get it all
Absolutely.
out. Well, listen, Westmont College, we want to talk about level set for our audience. Where is Westmont College? Who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Just like you wouldn't watch Netflix with constant interruptions, get early, ad-free access and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. That's less than your Netflix subscription for content that actually impacts your career. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com.
Okay. Well, Westmont College is in the greater community of Santa Barbara, California, actually in the suburb of Montecito. Neighbors include Katy Perry and Oprah Winfrey. So we have name recognition among some of the cultural elites. It's just an amazingly mild climate. They often refer to it as the American Riviera. Usually doesn't get over 85 in the summer, usually doesn't get below 50 in the winter. There's little to no humidity, which means there's few, if any, mosquitoes. And having spent 7 years in the Midwest, that's something to be thankful for. And so I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon. I came to Westmont as a student my senior year and just had a phenomenal experience. 27 years later, I was president of a institution in Michigan from 2000 to 2007. In 2007, had the opportunity to return to Westmont and was just delighted to be selected. We're just finishing our 18th year, and it's just been wonderful to get to be a part of what's going on here and really do have an opportunity to do some really interesting, informative, and groundbreaking things, and I've been grateful for the opportunity.
It's a yes from me.
I love it. What stands out amongst all of that, other than the weather and the pristine environment, did you just say, and of course I know this because I had to research and stalk you on social media, that you've been a president for 18 years?
Well, actually, I've been a president here for 18 years. I was a
Yeah.
president for 7 years at my previous institution, so I'm just finishing my 25th year overall.
But
18
18 years in one
in
location is
Westmont,
like,
yes.
it's like what, 13 or 14 years above the national average for presidents? I mean,
It's
you're single-handedly keeping the average high here, Gayle.
yeah, the average is 4.4 years. So
Yeah.
you're yeah, I've lived four presidencies here.
That, you know what? That's a really interesting and fascinating place to start, because when you're somewhere for a long time and you're a president, it doesn't even matter what position, but certainly as a leader, as a president of an institution, you're somewhere for a long time. Complacency can become the enemy of urgency.
Oh, good
And,
point. Yeah.
and it's like the coffee stain example where people tell you walk by the coffee stain every day, and then somebody walks with you and goes, oh, there's a coffee stain there. How have you kept yourself fresh over 18 years? Your leadership style, how you think about leadership, and how you run the college?
Well, certainly it started a lot of personal experiences, but one of the most significant shaping experiences was after doing a Master of Divinity degree at Princeton Seminary. And being involved in church leadership for 5 years, I went back to do a dual degree at Claremont, a PhD in philosophy and MBA in strategic management with Peter Drucker. And in writing my application, I said to Claremont Graduate University, I want to train people better than I felt I had been trained. And even though I had gone to one of the best seminaries in the world, I had never taken a single class in how to lead and manage an organization, and I was spending at least 50% of my time on that. And so the return to graduate school to do a dual degree, and especially to work with Dr. Drucker, was just a phenomenal propulsion for both my own personal growth and development and also my career. And I underestimated how much that would really count. But what it did is it set in motion ways of thinking about leadership and responsibilities. Dr. Drucker was totally committed to the human element of leadership. He had what he called a human-centered approach to leadership. Of course, he's often referred to as the father of modern management for his innovative and suggestive ideas that were chronicled in 39 books and hundreds of articles. I studied with him from age 80 to 83. He was 80 to 83. He would die just short of his 96th birthday. And so but it still was just masterful and inspiring. And so what I learned from Dr. Drucker was a patterned approach to my work that included recruiting, developing, and deploying a highly effective executive team. And we do goals at the start of the year. We do mid-year recalibration retreat. We do a goal assessment at the end of the year, and then we turn in our basically our year-end summary of what we believe we got done and what its impact has on the college. And then I always talk about not only the goals that we're setting, but what is our aspiring edge? And I believe individuals, like institutions, can really stall out. And if you don't continue to pursue an aspiring edge, you will stall out, and you'll either languish individually or your institution will languish because, pardon me, because of stalling out. And so I think part of my personal disciplines, I get up early, I read every morning for 2 hours. And it's some of it is pertinent to work when I have responsibilities that are coming up or even that day. But at other times, it's literally just a book list that I'm working through for my own personal growth and edification. What that has done is I am in terms of introvert, extrovert, I'm right in the middle. So I love being with people, but I get exhausted by it. And so I need times of recharging. And my time in the morning where I'm reading and thinking and looking at my calendar, I often joke that when school is in session, the day almost never begins and ends the way you think it will. And so part of what I love about my morning time and reading is that's the one part of my day that's predictable. And then it gives me actually the internal conversation. It allows me to really just engage ideas in a way that are nourishing to my spirit. And intern allows me to be outward facing, since most of my responsibilities are outward facing. And so those have been just some of the ways that I've tried to stay fresh across the long tenure as a college president. And then I do think that if you we can do anything for a year, but if it isn't us, we'll commit a career limiting move and we'll do self sabotage. And so I love being a college president. I love the challenge of the work. I love what we get to do. I especially love the interface of the faculty student teaching and learning dynamic. And so I've long since stopped teaching a full load, but every year I teach one class. And it's a senior class, it's a seminar in executive leadership. And I always team teach it, but I tell the students, this is not going to be the end all for what you learn about leadership, but I hope it's the beginning. And I hope when you have a leadership responsibility, you think back to concepts and readings that we considered during this semester that can lay a starting point, can lay out that step that starts you on your way to both pursuing leadership responsibilities and also resources that can help you do it well.
So to summarize, I hear you saying that you read for 2 hours in the morning and then you go to work, and then at work.
Well, let's start the insanity.
No, you didn't say that. But you did talk about discipline, which I think is a good concept. If you're in a leadership position for so long, you have to be extremely disciplined because you have to think new all the time. I like the aspiring edge, and I'd really like you to give me a little bit more on that, if you would. What is an aspiring edge? Is it a word? Is it a concept? Is it a construct? What is it exactly? Is it a value proposition?
Great question, and I would say it's all of the above. It certainly is a concept, but it also is a disposition, and the disposition is to never be content with what you've just accomplished, to recognize, to celebrate it, to pause and acknowledge it. But what does it do to lay the foundation for the next period of growth and development? One of the best books I've read on leadership was actually written by Henry Kissinger, one of the last books that he wrote. It was actually released the same month that he turned 100. And it's just called Leadership. And it actually profiles 6 world leaders, political leaders. And it's interesting for a number of points. All 6 of the people are people that Kissinger knew. He worked with 5 of them. In the case of Richard Nixon, he worked for President Nixon. But among the many insights that Kissinger offers in the book is the fact that political leaders inherit a lot of challenges. They work on what can be the next period of growth and development for their country, and then they leave in place a lot of challenges that their successors have to wrestle with. There are so many parallels to that analogy with college presidents. Now, Westmont is in its 88th year. By business standards, that's a very old business. By college standards, that's a very young college. And we are much more, of course, we're third sector economy, not for profit, but we're more like the second sector government than we are the first sector, the for-profit economy. And so sometimes certain challenges come to a president because your high net worth people tend to be in the first sector economy, but they're working in the second sector with you or the third sector. And the pacing, like I have private equity people involved with the college, their cycle time is 7 to 10 years. We do a 3-year strategic plan in conversation with a 10-year horizon, but that is always rolling. And we anticipate we have a plan for how we want to get to 100 years, 12 years from now. But I know college presidents are at institutions that are 200 years old, and they have a 50-year plan. And so they're literally looking out that far. And obviously, it's very imprecise the further out you get. But those are just some of the ways in which the aspiring edge, I think of it as the incessant need to continually pursue the next horizon. And it's aspirational, even in its ideas. The other thing is, as you get underway, the challenges shift. Colin Powell, I think, famously said that once you engage the enemy, your strategy has to adjust. And I have just found that to be true as well.
That's no, you're right. It's fascinating to think about it that way, especially when students are evolving.
Yeah.
So the way in which, and technology is evolving.
Yeah.
So the way in which we have to operate, I mean, AI 2 years ago, what year are we in? 3 years ago in November, December, to now, it's been a lifetime of change for some people already.
Well, Joe, to that point, we're on a Zoom podcast.
Yeah.
The week before the global pandemic, we had done a total of 14 Zoom meetings, no
Yeah.
classes. And then, a week after the pandemic, we were doing 1,400. And so we realized when forced to, we could actually find different modalities in which to teach and learn.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Now, leadership has become not only, well, by the way, Peter Drucker, for anybody who doesn't know, I mean, this guy, I mean, you're talking like a leader of leaders, and being able to take a curriculum informed by him is unique at CGU, at Claremont Graduate University, which I know pretty well as well. And that's become a lifetime sort of passion for you, and now has manifested itself into your own book on leadership.
True.
So I'd really love to hear about your book. Give us the title and maybe some of the concepts that you've written about.
Well, the book came out a year ago, May of 2024. It's called The Crucibles That Shape Us, Navigating the 7 Defining Challenges of Leadership. And when you're president for a while, things happen and you have to figure out how to get through them. And so the book is really an effort to just articulate what are the significant challenges. It starts with chapter 1, The Crucible of Mismeaning. And the Crucible of Mismeaning is a play off of a famous line from T.S. Eliot's work, The Four Quartets, where he says, they had the experience, but they missed the meaning. And I think that is just so telling of life. And then I use some of Daniel Kahneman's work from Thinking Fast and Slow, the Nobel laureate in economics for inventing behavioral economics. And Kahneman talks about the fact that so many people think that they can be dropped off in any situation and intuitively grasp what's going on. And he says that's almost never the case. And so he has this acronym that stands for what you see is all there is, the tendency we all have to believe that what we see is all that's going on. He said the first question we should ask is not what you see is all there is, but what am I not able to see? And how can I learn to see the situation I'm in? The second is the Crucible of Enduring Challenge, and this is when I use the book I just referenced by Kissinger, because often so many things in life actually just take longer than we think they will. One of my mentors say to me once, the only thing in life that doesn't take as long as you think it will is life itself. And I've thought about that. And then that chapter actually starts with a list of 12 kind of guide. When I was writing the book, the editor and publisher that I was working with said, okay, I read this chapter. I can tell you have a list. I want the list. I said, well, I've never written out the list. And she said, but I can tell you have one. I want you to write out the list. And so there are 12 that include always outlast the opposition. I mean, that's just one of the principles of kind of how you endure. But it also, there's other things that are in the list that actually are guidelines. And that I think just even following those 12 items will keep you out of a lot of trouble and keep you engaged in the right priorities. The Crucible of Human Treachery, that actually I've received more notes on that, and it deals with Dr. Friedman was a famous psychologist and also organizational psychologist, and one of his most famous books is called Failure of Nerve, and it's literally the lack of courage that leaders have to clean up their organization.
Nailed it.
So anyway, what we look at in human treachery is the fact that goes on and how it actually sabotages your effectiveness. And then there's 4 other chapters. The Crucible of awakened moral conscience. I use Martin Luther King Jr. and the racial conversation that really took off in the spring of 2020. The Crucible of Awakened the Crucible of Social Conscience is chapter 5, and that's featuring John Lewis, and just what we learn as one of the main proteges of MLK. And then the Crucible of Human Suffering. This one was actually born a lot out of my personal experience of losing just one of my favorite mentors very early in his life, very early in my adult life, and then losing my father 7 years later. And what I learned from that is the way in which you respond to crisis and suffering at one point in your life will really help you when it happens at a later point in life. And then the last chapter is really focused on the crucible of personal choice, and I'll just leave that for later. But the crucible of personal choice is about the fact that as much as we wish we could blame somebody else for our problems, often a lot of our challenges are ones of our own making, and we need to take personal responsibility. That is the quick overview of the book, and thank you for letting me do it.
No, I mean, I think these concepts are important for leaders in higher ed. We're not living in a time without challenge right now in higher education, so our leadership is tested.
Well, and Joe, if I could amplify one thing from chapter 7 that I have learned, and this goes clear back to in the late 90s when I was in a different role and responsibility at a university in Southern California. And I had not yet become aware of Daniel Goleman's work in emotional intelligence, nor the idea of an amygdala hijack, which he was the first one to introduce this idea that people who work in a context of consistent disrespect often self-sabotage by amygdala hijacks, where they get disrespected, they overreact, and they make a career-limiting move. That was so pivotal to me, to helping me learn how to actually respond to a situation I was in. And then as I've gone forward, I'm 30 years removed from that experience and that initial learning. And I will end up in situations where I'm being very disrespected. And I always remember the incident 30 years ago and also Goleman's work to recognize, okay, this is what's going on. You've got to self-regulate. One of my 12 principles from chapter 2 is I've never gotten in trouble for things I thought but didn't say. There are so many people, when they have heard me say that, have said, oh my, that's actually painful to hear. And I think most of us, and it includes me, have experiences we look back on. We just wish we would have stayed quiet rather than what we said ended up just complicating the situation.
When we talk about our personal truths, this is what our initial reaction is.
You can't handle the truth.
But we do have to come to terms and become self-aware as leaders, especially when people, are transient now. So, you talked about crafting and training executive leadership teams, knowing that over your 18-year career, those leaders will cycle in and out. So you're always, I'm not saying always, but you from time to time, you're retraining or getting these new leaders up to speed, making sure that the service to the students never skips a beat, which is always tough when you lose key leaders, right?
That's true.
That's a lot to manage. And the general operations of a college, the tenants, enroll, retain, graduate, those things that we can't lose sight of, that happen whether we have good leadership teams or not. Either they happen well or they don't happen, right? So there's always some consequence. It's a lot to keep track of as a college president, and I say that because you talk about the love of the job that you have. That's not necessarily widely adopted by college presidents. There are some that are doing the job and right now don't like it very much because of the pressures. And not just external, the internal and external, and the confluence of all those things come together right now after COVID, after all that burn, it's like, how do you keep leadership teams motivated and focused amidst all of disruption that we feel?
Well, the one of my favorite mentors was Steve Sample. He's passed away, but was for many years the president at USC. And actually, I learned so much from Dr. Sample about teams, about the selection of teams, how you manage teams, how you trust them, and then that you always have to stay emotionally present to your team. And by emotionally present, that includes don't let down. And by don't let down, he means if you have agreements, make sure everybody's honoring them and that they continue to honor them. I think one of the temptations and you mentioned the word complacency earlier in our interview, the one of the temptations is to just put it on autopilot or believe that you can put leadership on autopilot. And I have just never found that to be the case. What I have found is that you get into almost the definition of flow that we pursue as individuals, we also pursue it as leadership teams. And when we're in flow, you almost can read each other before it's even said or stated. But even in that, you go through periods where it ebbs and flows, and the you have to be attentive to is everybody staying motivated? Is everybody doing the personal care and the professional care to be sure that they are congruent with what we're trying to accomplish and able to show up every day ready to do it? We have had some members of the team, like our chief financial officer, Doug Jones. Doug and I have been together since August of 2000. I hired
Wow.
him a month after becoming president, and then he came with me to California. Another Reed Sheard, 22 years. Irene Neller is more recent to the team, but she's in her 8th year and just a master of enrollment marketing communication. Kim Deneau is our provost, and Kim and I actually worked together 30 years ago and then just reunited 3 years ago, and it's been great to have her.
Coaching tree coming to, it's coaching trees are real. They are, especially when you really, the empathy parts. I see it in my career. I've managed and led people, and then it comes around and that person says, I want to come back and work with you, or you reconnect with somebody and you find that trust to go into a situation and know that that person's going to go through brick walls when they need to help the business run, right?
Absolutely. No, and trust is such a key. Absolutely such a key.
What about what's the word I'm looking for? Differentiation. I couldn't find it for a second. It's my foggy, sick brain. But differentiation is important right now for colleges and universities. And you wouldn't have stayed somewhere that you didn't feel was a differentiated product for what it, whether you want to call it a product or service or education in the market, right? What do you think makes Westmont special? And what's kept you there so long?
Yeah, well, to the extent that this is relevant for your listening audience, we talk about rigorous academics, deep love for God, and we are faith-based, and so both are the curricular, the academic program, very rigorous. I love the academic preparation that every student receives. And then we want you to think about the values that guide your life. And the co-curricular student life program is very much about that. We're a national liberal arts college that believes in innovation. And so in addition to the classic liberal arts, we also do data analytics, we do engineering, we do nursing. But everything is embedded in the liberal arts tradition. And part of what I like about looking back at Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and kind of the founders of the tradition is they were really trying to teach us how to think. Mm-hmm. And so the grammar, logic, rhetoric triad that starts, what is the right use of language? What's the right use of thought? How do you combine the right use of language with the right use of thought to make compelling arguments that move society? That was the foundation. And then higher order thinking was developed through arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. Then as you enter, the common era for Western civilization, they begin to think about how do you actually train the mind? And so there are just these great thinkers over the 2,000-year history of the common era that really look at you have to learn how to think properly in every area of human knowledge. And that is, and this actually goes to what Drucker said. Drucker believed the liberal arts was the best way to be educated as a leader because it would teach you how to reach into any area of human learning to find a solution. And so he honestly would celebrate the liberal arts. I had 4 classes with him. He was the most available professor I've ever studied with. If you wanted to have lunch with him, he would figure out how to make time for us. Meanwhile, he was consulting world leaders. But if you were a student, he was so amazing that way. In fact, it was a model for why I make myself so available to students here. And I'll have lunch. Even today, I'm having lunch with a student that just graduated who just wanted to talk about kind of his first career move. But that's something that was modeled to me, certainly by Dr. Drucker and others, including Dr. Sample. And so you learn from these other experiences, and they actually do help just bring the renewal that you need.
Renewal's I like that word that you just ended with, renewal, because we're talking about liberal arts.
Yeah.
We're really talking about the power of
Yeah.
liberal arts.
Yeah.
And its application to leadership. And as we look, it's funny, and I said this on a podcast not too long ago. If you go back 3, 4, 5, let's say 5 years, do you remember the proliferation of coding boot camps?
Oh, totally.
Everybody needs to know how to code. If you don't know how to code, you're going to be irrelevant. And so there were a lot of people that went to coding boot camps. And then businesses came and said, I got a lot of coders, but I don't have any leaders. I don't have anybody to lead these people. And all of a sudden, we saw graduate programs explode because you don't have the leadership skills. You need to know how to work with people. Now, fast forward, we have artificial intelligence again. Now a new technology where not only is it this time the industries around us talking about AI, but even social media, which creates a lot of noise for students, saying you don't need to go to college anymore. You can go to these websites and use Gen AI, and you're going to be Elon Musk in 4 years, or in 4 minutes. And my concern, and I've voiced it, is we're going to lack leaders. We're going to lack a lot of leadership because we're going to have people go and take these AI programs and learn AI and do this and do that and take these skills and stack all these skills. And all of a sudden, there's going to be no leaders because we're not celebrating the power of liberal arts the way we should. What do you think?
Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Just like you wouldn't watch Netflix with constant interruptions, get early, ad-free access and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. That's less than your Netflix subscription for content that actually impacts your career. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com.
Well, I totally agree. And part of what you discover when you engage AI is that it's different than Google search or any of the search engines. And initially, that's how I used it. I used it as a search engine, and then it would hallucinate. But what you discover is the quality of your prompt has a role to play in the quality of the response. And the quality of the prompt is directly tied to your own intelligence and the development of your intelligence. And so I see this coming full circle where we're back to how the liberal arts teaches you to think, equips you to ask really specific but comprehensive prompts that get you very relevant information. And then when you can understand how the large language model works enough to actually craft prompts, it becomes a real companion in your work. Like we're doing a project right now where we're assessing how we basically what the cost model is for our education and how we deliver different majors, et cetera. Well, the whole thing used to take weeks, if not months, to do. Now we do it within our own large language model with a prompt that originated with our VP of Finance, and that's where you see AI coming alongside not to replace, but to augment how we can think, how we can actually do our work, and how we can do it more rapidly. I was talking with one of our board of advisor members, owns and operates a company that specializes in AI, and he was saying to me that part of what he hopes people come to realize about AI is that yes, certainly if used by rogue agents, it can become a threat. But for the most part, it has the power to allow us to do our work so that we can engage in deep thinking. And his idea of deep thinking is similar to my idea of what happens every morning when I get to read for 2 hours. Your mind gets to wander across the subject matter, and you grow because of that. And I think that that's an essential ingredient for effective leadership.
100%.
we that means complete agreement. We want to ask, I want to bring you back for a subscriber only episode right at the conclusion of this. And I'm going to ask you about the Crucible of Human Treachery because you sparked my interest. But before I bring you back, I want to give you just a little bit of space to tell us anything else that you think we should know about Westmont College, anything at all that you want to say, and then we'll close it out and we'll bring you back. So what else do we need to know?
Well, I would love for you to know that the students at Westmont are smart and fun, and it's just the joy of the job is getting to interact with students. We do a phenomenal job with our education mission. We do a phenomenal job with our whole person development education. And I just appreciate so much being on your podcast. You're anchored there in the Midwest where we spent 7 years of our life as a family and a couple. But I have loved being back in California because we have a great education product, but we also have the entrepreneurial spirit, the innovation that drives the college. And so we're not only doing the kind of education that trains you for life, it also equips you to ask great questions that move the knowledge base forward. And it's just thrilling to get to be a part of it.
Well, there you have it, everybody. An amazing episode for the EdUp experience, and all because of our guest. That's the way it works. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, one more time. He's President Gayle Beebe from Westmont College, and you just EdUp'd.